Hello, welcome to a new video series I kind of want to do on this channel. I kind of want to do a video series that kind of talks about my art and my kind of opinions on my own art style and that kind of stuff. So really so the first half I'm just going to go over some of the artworks that I've done. Then I'm just going to go on to whatever topic I want to talk about in the podcast section. So there's two sections to this kind of video. There's be an overview of all my artwork, then there's going to be a podcast portion. So the overview of my artwork is the artwork that I've done at the time or whatever. So it's gonna be different each video. You won't see the same painting, same stuff over and over and over, unless it's like an update or work in progress type painting or whatever. Okay, so let's get started. So this is what I did 3 years ago, 2 to 3 years ago. I don't remember when. This is like my first landscape paintings I've done. I don't really like them, but this one I did these all the different times of the day. That's nighttime. I think that was daytime. And one of these is afternoon and or whatever, something like that. I did this 4 times in the day. This was for class. This was for a painting class I was in. And I was actually really happy to actually work on these because I never really did landscape, so I was really just trying to focus on this. And this was the landscape of my backyard, so it's very kind of small, and I liked it since there's a lot of stuff going on. Then there's this Magritte study that I did. In this particular assignment, we were gonna make a painting that would have been a Magritte painting, for example, but that he never made or something like that. It's kind of like just try to copy his style in a way, just to see and just to experiment with that. So I did this as a study. This was a study piece. So this was one of his paintings he made. I just painted it to see if I could do it. Then I made an original piece in the other place that was kind of a reference to one of his other paintings, but we'll get to that when we get to that. This one is a very popular one I did. This one was very abstract. The whole point of this one was to kind of just do whatever. It was kind of like a collage painting, and I had a lot of trouble with this painting. There was a lot of stuff that didn't work. So originally it started off just like each corner had a different color. Like that one was red, blue, green, yellow, whatever. And then after that, I put like a mouse trap on it, and then I took it off. Then I just started going crazy with masking tape, just kind of painting over that, and that's kind of what I got. It's good. I mean, I feel like I could have done more crazy stuff, but I think as it is, it's a very stable painting. And I do kind of want to go back and do another one of these paintings. I just really haven't found the time, or just the motivation, I guess. Then we got these two. These are just two still lifes I never got to finish, but the stuff I did finish, I like this one. I like the one on the left a little bit more, because it actually looks more complete than the one on the right. The one on the right I really just don't like. The one on the left is really one of my favorites out of the two. I think I got closer to the colors of what I was painting. Then we have, as I said, the other room, this was the Magritte study one, where I made a painting that was going to be a Magritte painting that he would have made, but he didn't make. So I obviously took a lot of inspiration of the paintings of where he has that big green apple in the center of the room. He has a beer bottle with like legs on it or something. I drew stuff like that, and I kind of read a lot of books on him. He did a lot of, he talked about how a beer bottle is like could be used very sexual. Like he focused on a lot of people's pleasures. So I figured people love drinking, people love sex. There you go, have both that in that bottle. That's what a lot of people, most people find pleasure in. So I just kind of did that, and then I worked on everything else. The clouds were the hardest part, to be honest, in this entire painting. The perspective was okay. It was kind of tough, but I think the clouds were kind of harder to grasp. There are some good cloud paintings in this, but some of them are just really bad. Then you have this one, which is just another collage painting. It's okay. I kind of like it. It's I think I might have gotten the idea from a painting my brother did. I would like to say that. I would like to say I got the idea subconsciously or somewhere, that I think I saw my brother do a similar painting to that. But again, these two were for a class. So it was that big masking tape one, the abstract one over there. That was also for a class. There was another painting I had, but I sold it, so you can't really see it. I might put an image of it later, maybe, but it's another still life that I liked a lot more than these two, actually. So that's it. That's it for all the paintings. Now on to the podcast section. So in this part of the video, I kind of want to do this kind of parts. I hope that at some point I get a guest. So, hey, if you want to be a guest, contact me and we can make it happen. But I just want to talk about like either art stuff that either inspired me or who was an influence, and just kind of like, you know, stuff like that. I want to kind of talk about art in general, be it myself or just kind of how I look at other people's art, stuff like that. So that's the point of this video series. So let's get started in the beginning. I'm going to talk about the beginning about myself and kind of how I got into drawing and so on. So in the 90s, as any other kid, I watched a lot of cartoons. And when I was watching these cartoons, I really got into them because I liked that they're all done by hand. And I mean, now I know that they were done by hand, so I liked it for that. And you know, the shapes and the styles and the character designs are all very like, unique. If you change the channel, you can remember the show just by how it looks. Like, I remember watching Gatchaman, which is a Tatsunoko show, and man, the only thing I remember that show was they had cool helmets. And then when I saw the actual show now, when I'm like old, it's an animated crap fest because it was done in the 80s, so a lot of animation was kind of weird back then. So it didn't really stick with me, and now like when I'm looking at it, it's just kind of funny. So that's kind of like how I looked at shows. I just remembered it by how it looks. And you know, if I liked it, I stuck around and I saw the next episode, or I would just kind of find out when it plays, whatever, because I liked the art style. The art style was the first thing that I saw in the show. I didn't care about the story, the character dialogue, or anything. I just cared about how it looked, and I usually went from there. And as I was watching these shows like Two Stupid Dogs, Dexter's Lab, Johnny Bravo, Rugrats, Rocko's Modern Life, all these shows, I would draw as I was watching them. So like that, or I would just like I would basically draw what I saw, or just kind of draw in general when I was watching these shows, because these were very inspirational. Because the thing that I liked about these shows, and I feel that a lot of kids missed out, is that they weren't perfect shows. They weren't animated perfectly, because they're all done by hand. So you can only go so far without it looking weird at times, because a lot of animation has a very strict timeline. You can't, like, you know, they don't give them like 7 years to make a show. They give them like a concise timeline to adhere to, and they have to make the show within that restraint. So you see a lot of like either errors or mix-ups. That's why you see a lot of animation errors. And I like, and it's genuinely pleasing, because you know, it not only does it show that, well, these are people too and they make mistakes, but I think it also shows how much effort is put into other scenes, and kind of what happens is they might be very strained at some parts of the animation. You can kind of tell that maybe they either fell asleep or they were just like hurrying or something. But the fact that each show at that time was done by hand through cells, I think that is very captivating, and that you can at some point in time own a frame of a show, and that'd be a very big collector's piece. And now you can't really do that. You can't do that with these new shows because they're all digital now. And really with digital, I mean, I know there's this discussion of like painting by hand versus digital, and kind of the gains and losses between them. And I think they're both in two different worlds almost, but both of them also, as different as they are, they both share a common like connection. And I think that's really where it kind of works. It's just digital is just another medium. Like there's charcoal, there's oil, there's all this kind of stuff, and then there's digital. So I think this digital is just another world of art. So I don't necessarily think that it's because of digital is why these shows are just kind of lame. But I think a lot of the time, these networks want to cash in on these shows, so they want to make them fast, and they want to go by the numbers. So that's why a lot of these shows now feel like that they're done on a manufacturing line, which is kind of tragic for me because I watched cartoons from like elementary school all the way through like high school, really up until college is when I kind of stopped watching, because around that time, a lot of shows went to Flash animation. And Flash animation I knew from YouTube and Newgrounds and all this kind of stuff because they used Flash. And around this time, I felt, and when I'm watching this stuff, I feel that a lot of Flash animators that worked on Newgrounds and YouTube, like Egoraptor, for example, animate better than the shows that are adopting on TV. Because the thing I've seen, like, for example, the Powerpuff Girls anniversary special they did, like the complete last episode when they released the box set of the Powerpuff Girls, they did this special, the special on it. I can't remember the name, I think, but it had to do with the key and there was a race. But it was like the first time, like, where Craig McCracken, the creator, was like, oh, this is the first time we're doing Flash, and this is what we got. And it was the ugliest thing I have seen. The show itself wasn't like a work of art either, but it had thin lines and it looked great. You saw the Powerpuff Girls in Flash, and it was just like very thick lines. The animation was just kind of stiff and kind of sticky. Like, they moved like stick figures, and it was just kind of it was just really just annoying to sit through. I was like, why? This is just kind of hurting my eyes almost. You know, then you go see like Metal Gear Awesome and Metal Gear Awesome 2 and everything from Egoraptor or Hot Diggity Demon. Those are well animated videos. Like, they take a long time, sure, but like they at least look pleasing and they had effort put in. And a lot of the times, like, TV went this weird, like, period where they had these ugly Flash shows that were, like, picking up, by storm. Like, I think there was, Johnny Test was definitely one of them. Phineas and Ferb, I don't know, I never understood why people liked Phineas and Ferb. I couldn't even sit through one episode. It's just, the art style was disgusting. I hated it. Because again, like, you know, you would tell me, well, I had funny jokes. I don't care. If it's visually disgusting, I'm not going to sit around. I'm not going to stick around to it. It's like, you can give me a plate of shit, you know, a nice little plate, turd on it, and you're just like, but if you look at it, you know, deep down inside it, it's really good. It tastes like cake. You just eat it. I'm not going to eat that piece of shit because it looks like a piece of shit. I wouldn't touch it. You could tell me it tastes amazing, and I would never eat it because the outside looks disgusting. And that's kind of how I feel with animation, because you really have to look at it, and if you can't get past how it looks, you're really not going to stick around. I mean, you could tell me how shallow that sounds, but that's kind of like how art works. And yeah, you could tell me, like, not all shows are art. That's fine. You know, if you don't watch cartoons for the art, that's fine. There's nothing wrong with it. That's probably why a lot of people like Phineas and Ferb, but I watch it for multiple reasons, and art is one of the reasons. Steven Universe kind of gets away with it because I like the backgrounds and I like the story and I like the dialogue, so that kind of gets away with it. But there was nothing in Phineas Ferb for me to go back into it. But when I see a show that has well animated characters, that's, you know, because that's what I try to evoke in my art. I try to evoke all this kind of detail, or like at least this kind of effort. I mean, I know obviously there's better artists than me. I'm not trying to say, like, I'm the best, look at my work. I think my art is still kind of childish at times. I think I'm still kind of getting the hang of it. I think my line work is kind of where I excel at. I think if you want me to do line work, I can do that easily. But when I do coloring is just painful to me. I'm still learning color theory, and I'm still trying to understand it. It's a whole mess of itself. So I'm really amazed when I look at these shows that have these amazing color tones. Like, a lot of shows have a two-tone setup, and I always want to have that. I always wanted to, like, have two tones because that to me is interesting how you can kind of tell depth by just having two tones. You don't have to have this gradient of shading. You just have these two tones of dark and light, and I think that works very well. And the way that lighting works and animating is so interesting. And with Flash, you lose that because Flash, they don't add a lot of shadows. I mean, now in 2015, 2016, they're, you know, like, maybe a few years, like maybe 4 years ago or so, they started actually playing around with shadows with Flash, and they look a lot better now. Like, again, like they did get get far with it, and I think they're experimenting with new techniques. But I also feel that now we have this surge of 3D modeling going on. Like, Disney announced that they're not going to do 2D animation. That was like kind of the buzz of the news for a while, and I really think that was a mistake on Disney's part. Because all they did with the 3D movies is they just took the style of the animated movies and just kind of inflated them into 3D. And really, when you do that, it looks disgusting and it looks kind of shitty, because it's like that image that floats around where people are talking about, like, oh, this is what Mario would look like if it was done realistically, and it looks freaking scary. And that's kind of what happens, because when you draw up like big eyes, it looks aesthetically pleasing because it's 2D. It doesn't, like, it looks interesting, but when you put that in 3D, like, they look like bugs. Like, the eyes bulge out because since your eye's a ball, like, your eye does kind of bulge out of, like, from where the eye was. That's why it's kind of a ball shape. So when you make that, not only when they're bigger in 2D, then you inflate them in 3D, it's just like, it's disorienting and disgusting, especially when they have thin bodies. Because again, like, again, when you have hand-drawn animation, you could get away with a lot of stuff. But also, when you do 3D, I also have the expectation of having more detail. As much as I like Bruce Timm's animated style and series, his Green Lantern series was just kind of disappointing to me, because I would have liked it more if it was 2D. The 3D of it looked so generic and kind of base. It looked like it was unfinished. It looked like that it was ready to go to be rendered, because there was no textures, there wasn't a lot of textures, and there was not a lot of detail in it, and it just looked lame. And I didn't have any commitment to it. I was like, oh, this looks whatever. And I just changed the channel and I stopped watching. When I watched, like, Batman animated series, when that came on TV, I watched the crap out of it, because the art style was interesting, the way it looked, the way that the characters moved was so well done, and it was and it had a lasting impression. This didn't have a lasting impression on me, and that's why I feel with animation that you need to have that lasting impression, because with that lasting impression, I was thinking about that through elementary, middle, high school, and so on, that I wanted to work in that field, or I want to do something with that. And that's really what I tried to evoke with my style. That's kind of where I started, was all these shows that I keep kind of my eyes open on that. I kind of, on the animation side sometimes, but mostly it's only stuff that I come across that is interesting, because now I just feel like shows are just too by the numbers, or are similar to other shows. Like, there's a lot of shows that are similar to Adventure Time now. There's shows that are similar to a regular show. There's all these shows that are like another show now, that it doesn't really have a voice. And, like, before, you had all these, like, diverse shows, and now it's kind of like there's still diversity with them, but it's a diversity of different kinds of shows that were other shows, if that makes sense. And it's not necessarily bad, but it's not like before, because a lot of networks don't want to take the risk, and I think that's and it shows in their work, and I don't really like that. Like, Young Justice and some of the DC animated movies are all safe movies stylistically, because they're all the same. Because, when you look at, the animated movies, they have very good animation. Then when they made Young Justice, they kind of wanted to keep it the same, so they kind of have these two consistent presentations. But, like, with Young Justice and these movies that are run in the same style, they have these weirdest perspective with their eyes and their eyebrows and all this kind of stuff. Like, look at Superboy and Talia from the Son of Batman, Batman vs. Robin, and Batman Bad Blood series. They both look weird. They don't look at all like memorable characters. They just look awkward to me. And that's what I just didn't like about that style. Like, when I watched the Superman the Animated Series and Justice League, they had very distinct styles to them, and now it's like I don't see that as much anymore, and it's kind of disheartening, because there is some variety, but there's not enough of it. I feel like I don't feel like there's a lot of variety in there to go off of, and I think that's a shame, because I think a lot of kids shows that I grew up with had that kind of passion. And there is passion in these shows as well, but they're just not in places that I want them to be. Like, at times, I don't know if that makes sense, but there's just no commitment I have to watching shows anymore on TV, because there's nothing there for me anymore. Like, I don't know if it's because maybe I'm getting older and I'm not in the demographic anymore, but when it shows that I want to like, I don't like as much, or I just kind of see whatever comes up or something. Because I mean, I did watch Steven Universe, I did watch Over the Garden Wall, and those are really good shows, and they do have some stylistically cool things that I like generally about them, but just not as much as I did when I watched the other shows. Like, Rocko's Modern Life had a lot of good artwork put into it, and a lot of passion within the drawing, because you see the perfections, and you see their best drawings and their shitty drawings in them. With digital, you could just kind of edit the shit out of that, all the bad drawings out, or you could just kind of take a picture and then just kind of copy paste in other frames, and that's kind of like depressing to me, and I don't really like that. I know like a few Japanese anime directors kind of brought this up, where each episode used to be animated by a different person, or in or something like that in the old days of animation. And now they don't do this, all standardized now. And I know that the guy who did Kill la Kill and Girl in the Gone said this as well. He said that, you know, I wish I missed the days when each anime was animated differently, and that's kind of why episode 4 of Girl in the Gone and Kill la Kill had a different animation style, was because he wanted to experiment with different styles with his shows. He wanted to evoke that time of animation history with Japanese in Japan, where they had these different animators animating the same show, and that's why so that was interesting. That's what I liked generally, is that, you know, there was no standardized model sheets back then. Now it's like, okay, there's model sheets, we gotta standardize these characters, so it's kind of like a factory. It's like a machine now. It's like a factory line that these people are working on with these shows. So you don't get a lot of love with the animation or with the art style. You get some, but a lot of the times when they design a character, they're like, well, what's easy to animate? And it's like, there's no challenge. Like, you know, and that's the whole point with art. When I do art, I always try to challenge myself. Like, I find things to push myself. Like I said, like, doing a zombie apocalypse or an apocalyptic series is really challenging. Like, I suck at that. But I have a Tumblr series about it, and I look at it as like, this looks like garbage because I didn't push it enough. And, you know, that I like that challenge. I like challenging myself like that, and I don't see that enough with shows anymore, because they don't want to have a show that is constantly like kind of like that. And I know I said that, you know, I don't want a show that looks like shit, but if it looks imperfect within the animation, with in-betweens or whatever, I can understand that. But at least I get a sense of humanity within those within those hand-drawn shows, because now it's not really like that. And I don't know how to explain it. It's just how I don't really feel it. It's like you're eating like an appetizer for the main course meal now when you watch these shows. It just feels like you're getting nothing but snacks. Like, Steven Universe is a snack food show, because it's not a show that leaves you satisfied or full. You're just kind of like, oh, okay, that was that. I need more, and you watch something else to kind of get to fill that void that Steven Universe kind of leaves. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. It's not really the show's fault. That's kind of like how it's run, and it does a good job of what it does. But it's 11-minute runtime. That's not how a lot of shows operate nowadays. A lot of these shows, and I don't really like 11 minutes. I don't think some of these shows should have a full, like, 22-minute runtime like they did in the past. I think the only shows that benefited 11-minute runtimes were like kind of sitcom-y shows, like Rocko's Modern Life. Powerpuff Girls was a sitcom-y show. It was just kind of, these heroes who do fight crime in 11 minutes or whatever. I mean, that wasn't a serious show to begin with, so that's why he gets away with it. Steven Universe isn't serious, but at the same time, it's trying to tell a very compelling story. But you know, that's kind of how I saw cartoons when I was growing up, and that's kind of what started all this, and that's kind of why I still watch them and I still talk about these shows, because they have a lasting impression on me. And that's it. I would like to have a third phase where I would answer questions or emails or whatever. So since this is the first episode, I can't do that. So if you have questions you want me to answer in the next episode, leave them in the comments below or just email me. Hey, I know I'm editing this part in. I gave you an email I don't want to use, so I'm gonna give you another email. You can send me your questions. Send me your questions at ravensguy1990@yahoo.com. Again, I'll put that email in the description below, and be sure you put as the subject line questions for your artcast show or whatever, something like that. Artcast. Well, let's say artcast for now. So put that in the subject line and put your question in the body, and I'll answer them in the next show in the third part. So thanks for watching. Please let me know what you think of this type of video. If you liked it, I might do some other things with this video as well. I'm gonna try to make it so that it's not gonna just be me talking to a camera. I'm gonna try to do some like video things, I guess, if that makes sense. So I know this is running a lot longer, so I'll stop talking now. Thanks for watching. See you next time, guys.